Hello, my name is Dave Late and welcome to episode 2 of the Be Happy podcast. To take us into episode 2, which is called What is Happiness? What a great title that is. I've got a little story for you. So here we go. Let's just dive straight into it. Before the UK went into lockdown, I was addicted, and I mean addicted to caramel latte. I just loved it. I drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day because for me, caramel latte was just, it was just a lovely drink. It was my favourite drink. But as we all know, that caramel latte is not good for you, is it? And I was nearly at the point where I needed a self-help group to get me off of it. But in the event the lockdown helped me out, it helped me to wean myself off caramel latte, so I'm now caramel latte free, which from the health point of view is quite good. Anyway, one day before the lockdown, I went into my local Costa coffee shop, and I used to love that place because I like people watching, just love to go in there and sit there and people watch. Now I went in to order the famous caramel latte, and as I ordered my drink, I couldn't help noticing that the girl who was serving me behind the counter, she looked really fed up, really unhappy. And I'm like a nosy person, so I just had to ask her, hey, what's up with you then? She said that, look, I'm just having a rubbish day because I'm having a rubbish life. I thought to myself, wow, what an answer. And being that nosy person, I had to do a follow-up question, didn't I? I said to her, how happy are you out of 10 then? Because I always ask people how they are out of 10 just to kind of get a gauge on them and where they are in their lives. She looked at me, she just said 3. I said, hey, wow, that's low, innit? I thought I'd do another question. I said, well, what about in general then? From day to day, how happy are you? On average, just generally. She looked at me again and went, 3. I thought, wow, and I was getting a bit interested, and I thought I'll ask her one more question. I said, hey, well, if you're that unhappy, what is it that you think you need to do to get yourself some happiness in your life? What do you need to do, or do you need to go and get to take your happiness level maybe to up to a level 8? Because I thought that might have been a big, massive improvement for her. She thought about it just for a couple of seconds, and she shrugged her shoulders. She said, I don't know. No, I thought that her answer was just amazing, and I mean really amazing, because if she had no idea what the things were that she needed to do or she needed to go and get in her life to make herself happy, how on earth, how in this world, how in any world would she ever go and find some happiness for herself? Because if you don't know what you're looking for, there is simply no chance in hell that you're ever going to go and find it, is there? Especially if you don't know what you're looking for. And this little story is so typical of so many unhappy people who walk around in their day looking miserable, being miserable, talking miserable, experiencing miserable. And here's another thing about these people. Many of them have not taken the time or used any energy whatsoever to think about the things that they could go and do for themselves, or they could go and get for themselves to make themselves happy. And just like that girl in the Costa coffee shop, if they don't know what they're looking for or what they need to go and get to make themselves happy, they are doomed. And I mean, they are really doomed. They are dooming themselves to a miserable scenario, to a miserable life, because they're never going to go and find their happiness. And most of these people, they rely on things like luck or fate or someone else turning up to present them with their happiness. And the unfortunate thing is, in this life, is that this just does not happen. It's never going to happen, is it? That person is never going to come along and just say, they're never going to rock up and say, oh, here is your happiness. Oh, enjoy. The truth is, in your life, in this life, if you want to experience true inner happiness, because that's what we're talking about, it's a hard fact that you, and only you, have got to go and find it for yourself. So I'd like to ask you the question that I posed to you in episode 1, and I'm going to ask you that question again, and it's the most important question that you need to ask yourself every single day, and it is simply this: how happy are you? How happy are you? If you are low on your happy scale, do you know what you need to be doing or what you need to be getting for yourself in this your life to make yourself happy? Because as this old saying goes, and it's a really old saying, you must know this saying: the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and again and again and expecting things to change. So if you are currently unhappy and you do not make changes in your life, you are not going to change your life. And without change in your life, you will just keep going round and round and round in a continuous circle of unhappiness. And that process will, believe me, make you mad. Before we go on, it's worth noting, I want to make this point to you. Please write this down, put it at the forefront of your mind, make a note. Here it comes. Being happy is a serious business. I'll say that again. Being happy is a serious business. And being happy is a really major thing to achieve in our lives. And here is the reason why. Unhappiness, being unhappy, if we're not careful, can literally kill us. So I ask you again, how happy are you? Give yourself a mark out of 10. Where would you like to be out of 10? The difference in those two scores, if you are unhappy, is a measure of the work that you need to do to close this gap in your life. And if you do, your life and the quality of your life will improve. Your life depends on it. It literally does. Before you go to look for your happiness, you have to first of all understand what happiness is for you. And it's a massive, massive question. What is happiness to you? Now, I've tried to define happiness, and the best generic definition that I can come up with is that happiness is a peaceful mind. It's got nothing to do with fame, money, possessions, fitness, security, etc., etc., because you can have all of this and yet not be happy. And as we've seen many times, we have seen this many times, because if your mind is not at peace, your life is not at peace. I also came up with an equation, believe this, I also came up with an equation for happiness, which is take a life, take away worry and anxiety, and add in a huge dose of self-esteem, and you get happiness. So the equation is a life minus worry and anxiety plus self-esteem equals happiness. However, the truth is that happiness is a personal thing, isn't it? Your happiness is personal to you, and my happiness is personal to me, and as such, happiness, it cannot be defined generically. I can't tell you what happiness is for you, because it means different things to different people. So if you want to find greater happiness for yourself, you need to work out, you need to define for yourself what happiness is for you. And once you have worked this out, you can then make a plan and take the steps to go and find it. Your life, I'll say this again, your happiness literally depends on you doing this. Do not forget that I'm talking about true inner happiness in this podcast. I'm talking about the real deal. I'm not talking about cheap happiness. You know that cheap happiness that we can go and get quite easily? Do you know what cheap happiness is? It's the cheap happiness that we can buy or steal or get by dubious methods. And like anything that you get on the cheap, it's not as good. It is never as good as the real thing. They don't call Coca-Cola the real thing for nothing, because you can go and get a cheaper version of Coca-Cola. You can go and buy a cheap cola. But as you will know, it will never taste as good, never taste as sweet as the real thing. The cheap happiness that I'm talking about is the instant gratification type of happiness, which you can get through things such as doing drugs, selling them or using them, by getting drunk, maybe becoming an alcoholic, by stealing, lying, by cheating, having affairs, by getting material things, etc., etc. A lot of these activities involve looking over your shoulder in case you get caught. You're always looking over to see if someone's going to come and catch you out. If you're cheating, you're always looking over your shoulder to see if your partner's going to find out. You're always looking over your shoulder if you're stealing to see if the police are going to catch you. And if you are doing drugs or drinking too much, you had better be looking over your shoulder and watching out. Because if you're doing that, if you're engaging in these activities, believe me, the devil himself will come out and get you. And he will get you. How can you ever look forward towards your happiness if you are continually looking back over your shoulder in fear? So avoid the negative, easy get, cheap happiness, because it never lasts. When I'm asked what happiness is, I often reply happiness is mindset, which I firmly believe to be the case. If your mind is not right, your body won't work. And if your mind is not right, your life won't work either. To be happy, here is a major tip for you, and I mean a major tip on an epic scale. Take note of this. Here it is. If you want to be truly happy, if you want to make sure your dreams come true, if you want to find your success, work on your mind. Remember these words, commit them to your memory. They're my words. Here they are. All that you are and all that you will ever be is a direct result of your thoughts, your dreams, the decisions that you make and the actions that you take, because you are what you think. Boom. Mindset is everything. Make sure you keep a firm grip of your mind. Keep it positive. Brain train your brain. What was that? I said brain train your brain to be positive at all times, to react positive so that you stay positive. Your mindset, it's vitally important, and I mean really vitally important, because you can go and get all the success that you want. You can have all the trappings of that success, the fame, the money, the big houses, the huge bank account and worldwide travel, etc. But at the end of the day, if you are not right in your mind, if you have got a mindset issue, none of all of that stuff will deliver you long-term peace of mind and long-term happiness. And we've all seen loads and loads of rich, famous, talented people who have seemed to have had it all, but who ended their lives early because ultimately they were not happy. I'd like to bring this podcast, this chat, to an end, because I'm running out of things to say. But I'd like to bring it to an end by making this point. Life is not easy. We all know that. Life can be hard and demanding, and we all know that too. And it is exactly the same for happiness, for true, inner, long-lasting happiness. It doesn't come easy. You have got to work really hard for it. Cheap easy comes easy, but it's fleeting. It does not sustain you, and in the end, the pursuit of easy, cheap happiness is not worth it. But true inner happiness is long-lasting. Yeah, you've got to go and fight for it, but the fight for it is always worth it in the end. And this is the end of this podcast. I'd like to say thanks for listening. Please subscribe. Please ring the notification bell. Start following. Please share anything that we can do to grow the audience for this podcast, because I really do want to try and get through to as many people as I can in the world, because my belief is that maybe sometimes a word, a sentence or a phrase could inspire people to literally go forward into their lives and change their lives massively for the better. So I'll see you in the next podcast. Stay safe, and above everything else in your life, be happy.